Thanks, Candy. Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to read poetry that I've been working on the last little bit from my first collection that I've been working on probably for the last year. I kind of put my novel aside for a little bit, and this is taking center stage. It's kind of calling me, so I don't really want to ignore it. The poems center around a lot of challenging sort of things have happened in my life. I feel like I'm kind of at that age where you start to reflect on some things that have happened in your childhood and your adolescence, early 20s, whether it's problematic relationships with men, sexual abuse, broken family dynamics. So a lot of these poems are rooted in that. I'm going to read Pelicans in the Bathroom for my first poem. 1. Down Twisted Road, past church and rushing water, River Springs is the last of the great neighborhoods. The gem of my childhood set in the golden prongs of a tired mind. Folded under blue sky, bluff, where pool tags are required to swim. Bathing suit and towel tucked underarm, Swiss roll tight. Beige homes lined in cool procession. Every other weekend, my brother and I called this place home. Behind squat driveways and viridescent squares of lawn, we ate old Dutch chips, sucking potato cement from our teeth, a cove of cream soda, hollow rattle of VHS, and turquoise carpet, our rolling dreamscape of street hockey, an oasis we held tight, blurred behind glass cinder block. I can still feel the 5 o'clock sun on my neck as it drips honey into the dining room. We eat shake and bake with the TV on low. 2. My stepmother presents me with a glass of her homemade wine on Thanksgiving. I respect the bad girl offering placed squarely in hand, her welcome an invitation to her world. My first taste of booze, tongue scorched with fermented fruit, I dump it down the toilet when her back is turned. The pelicans in the bathroom size me up from behind their frame, call me wimp, tell me to grow a pair. I tell her I liked it, while a golden mountain range warms in the oven, KFC filling our home with a secret. Spice blend men have killed over. At least that's what my dad tells us between bites of radioactive slaw and a brief recap of the Soup Nazi episode. 3. When my dad moves into another house just down the street, I imagine this woman, a hybrid wedged between two women of the same name, an alien species intruding our special brand of dysfunction. I make a joke that my brother and I are now the pelicans in the bathroom, birds torn between sea, sky, land. Split 3 ways, our loyalties laid out in sections, disconnected, divided, a triptych hung on a bathroom wall in a beige home in River Springs. When he cries, I hold him close, tell him to grow a pair. We watch TV on low, nudged neatly between sea, sky, land. Gigglepuss. Another house party, spare beds brush thick like hogweed. A door slammed shut sits tight, wedged against Gigglepuss grins, snickering sallies, spectators at a coliseum. Inside, on loose sheets pinned, a hardy specimen stripped of its UV glass. A framed display of butterfly wings, conscious taxidermy. Of semi-conscious taxidermy, a young man kneels. Fear-bombed thrush gives permission when circumstance won't. His face bleeds initiative, a real go-getter. a blistering sublimation, a complicit shush, while wobbling penis is released from denim thoroughbrush, keyhole stuffed into a quiet sliver of shallow breath. We like to party. We like to party. Sunrise, her mouth shut, sits tight, opens not even for the vomit that exits cleanly from nasal passages. She awaits the tender touch of cold porcelain, of water cupped loosely in the heart of her palms. And she trips past the silence, a raucous animal howl, a narrow escape. The next poem I'm going to read is a poem that I'll dedicate to my brother. He deals with addiction and he's been dealing with it for a while, and he recently sought treatment at a treatment facility for his addiction for probably about the fourth time. So I wrote this poem a couple years ago, and unfortunately it's still relevant to this day, and we're very close, so this is for him. Elegy for my brother. You are terrified to be sober. This is the reason you give when I finally ask why you won't get help. Why your blood has turned to vinegar and your touch a swizzle on the horizon. A fata morgana, distracting us from your nothingness. Why you have constricted yourself of air because you feel you don't deserve a cleansing breath. You tell me you don't know what to tell me. Do you remember how we watched Willy Wonka, torch-eyed with sugar lust? Gene Wilder asked us if we wanted to view paradise. How we recoiled at Augustus Gloop's indulgence. How we recoiled at Veruca Salt's entitlement. How we imagined the soft mouth feel of a scrumptious bar. I bet you it just tastes like a Wonder Bar, you would say. Or how we used Dad's tripod to make our own talk show, sipping cool tap water from stoneware mugs, interviewing your Power Rangers. You never had a problem talking then. Do you remember how you used to smell like the fresh cotton Mom would dress you in, before the smell of steel-toed boots and a week's worth of silver bullets tattooed your tongue? You live down the street from a cold beer and wine, is your answer when I ask you why you can't get help. You are terrified to be sober. This is the reason you give. Lebensmutter. Watch me as I take all the old Jonathan Taylor Thomas posters I had as a kid and make a hat. Watch me wear it for an entire day as I eat flaky croissants, jamming corners of golden dough into the cavern of my jaw, letting the flour and butter hug my insides while I think of you. Watch me rent a pistachio green cruiser as I ride along the seawall, wind whipping at the JTTs stuffed softly beneath my helmet, as I smile through sea salt paint on parted lips, a cool drink I will tip to the sky. After that, I will smoke all the cigarettes I never allowed myself as a teen, carefully holding them like a French actress or James Dean, flipping off people that give me stink eye, reveling in this bacchanalia, no longer afraid of all the shoulds that once orbited my body like flies. Because now I know the punchline, or more accurately, lack thereof. I know that the algebra and clean language, the cover letters and the veggies were all something to be told, a distraction, the way realtors stage a room with shiny objects, something heavy to hold down the paper-thin flapping, a way to convince the buyer of legitimacy. But today will be different. Today you will watch. And I will sing all the stupid songs we learned in choir. Consider the word Lebensmutter and its direct translation, life tired. Smile at all the dogs, purge the years of pop culture from my guts, extinguished in deep, merciless belches. Watch me as Kevin Federline, Corey Feldman, Gangnam Style, and Britney's shaved head spill from my mouth, shattering like candy-colored sunshine, soon to be sweet dust. And only once the sun slips into the bay will I lay myself on the grass with what's left of my hat. Slide my tongue across the night, collarbone hinged on horizon moon, sliding a cool palm up my shirt, nipples twisting into pink starbursts. My face a hard ripple of light, a thrashing white fish breaking against the dark sky. My brain a spinning reel of all the women I ever wanted to touch, to become. How we are doing for time?
I think that's about good, I think.
About 10 minutes. Cool.
10 minutes, yeah.
So I'll talk to you about my creative process now. So I kind of have two dueling creative processes. With a novel, it really engages the left brain. I have to be incredibly organized. There's so many more formulas to and rules to adhere to as opposed to poetry, I feel. But with poetry, I keep a lot of notebooks kind of hidden around my house like Easter eggs. I have to purge the thoughts from my head when they do come in because my brain is a sieve and I have to get it out. So I basically have a notebook by my bedside table in my car. Like I often have to pull over to the side of the road to just like write something down. I have a lot of anxiety around like losing a thought. Also, I'm really keen on sort of absorbing poetry before I can even start. I have to read a lot of work. I have to kind of immerse myself into it before I get into the poetic mindset because I'm kind of on like a daily trap with my thinking, like lists and driving kids here and there, doing this and that. So I have to really read a lot of poetry to start thinking poetically. And I also like to think of myself as a bit of a word hunter. And what I mean by that is when I read poetry, I underline words, I hunt out new words that are kind of crunchy in any way. I don't like to use that word. It's like texturally pleasing. And I keep like a cache of words in a notebook, and because I just know how I operate, and I am the type of writer that I get very overwhelmed by the white space of a Word document kind of like blaring at the computer at me. So I like to come at it very prepared. As a poet, you're essentially an artist, and words are like oil paints for a painter, so I try to do that. Also, I use the voice recording feature on my phone. It's kind of funny. When I was a kid, I imagined growing up and being a writer and having one of those like 80s little miniature recorders and walking through the grocery store and saying things like, "The night was sultry," and "He ripped her bodice off," with fervor. And I'll say stuff like that when I'm talking to it, thankfully. But it's kind of neat to come full circle, and I really love that feature. It helps me a lot because it's not always easy, like siphoning your thoughts and putting them onto paper, so you just kind of get it out that way. It's really, really good. So that is kind of the extent of my creative process. And something that I'm interested in right now, Candy mentioned earlier that it doesn't supposed to regard writing, so I kind of didn't really everything I'm interested in right now has in some roundabout way have to do with writing. Kind of on like a one track right now. It's like I'm either taking care of my kids or writing or absorbing work. But I think right now what I'm mainly interested in is it's such like an interesting turning point for CanLit right now, and even just politically. I am really interested in just sitting back and absorbing a lot of the amazing voices in literature right now. I find that there's such a vast array of stories and narratives, and I'm really interested in just absorbing people's experiences that differ from mine. And I grew up in a household where it was very black and white thinking. My father was a Vancouver police officer, and he thought about things in a very kind of black and white way, and oftentimes he coded people, and I was always been bucking against that mentality my entire life. And I think that just sitting back and looking at someone's life through their literature that in no way touches your own experiences is really important, to not just build empathy as a human, but to build empathy as a writer, and I think that's so important. So that's what I'm kind of interested in right now. And that fully involves writing, so sorry.
That's totally fine. Nope, totally fine. Everything does really, for writers, it does kind of revolve back up to writing anyways for us.
Yeah, so I think that touches it. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. It was a pleasure.
Does anyone have any questions though for Carlie? Somebody might.
One question. What poets do you like?
Oh man, poets I like. Well, I love Yonina Curtin. She started doing poetry later in life, and there's just something about that I admire so much. And even putting that aside, her work is so raw and so visceral. I really love it, and I connect to it a lot. I've been reading Mallory Tater's recent collection of poetry, This Will Be Good, and it is a really beautiful collection of coming of age, girlhood. Also her partner, Curtis LeBlanc, did a collection, Little Wild, and I really love his take on and challenging toxic masculinity and being raised in sort of an environment where I guess toxic masculinity is present, and I feel like I can relate to that. I grew up with 3 brothers, and as I mentioned before, my dad's an alpha male, so. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There's just so many poets right now. Like I mentioned to Jennifer earlier, I'm really enjoying Waiting Room, her book, and the concept of waiting rooms. Like, I thought that the other day, like, damn, why didn't I think of that? That is awesome. There are so many waiting rooms, and it's just, they're so emblematic of the human experience, like that sort of liminality that, I don't know, which I'm often uncomfortable with, waiting and the in-betweens of life, and so I really like that book. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.